And we are on the air. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the show that makes an X-Lax bar look like a candy bar. This is the Sports Box, where the only opinion that matters. Right here, I am Mike Letta, a.k.a. Hamilton Mike, along with my partner, Brian, the Ranger at Heart. Brian, how are you today?
It's a nice shot in the corner.
You like that?
That was good.
Like a little free throw.
A little loud.
I'm getting my percentage up. It's okay. Guess what? It's coming. Because all these times I didn't throw anything, I might throw something through that concrete wall. Anyway, today we are going to talk about a little NHL preview for you. We are going to talk first about the Philadelphia Flyers. My Philadelphia Flyers, by the way.
So proud.
Yeah, I know, and I'm sure you'll down them as usual. That's fine.
That's why I'm here.
That's absolutely right. I can't wait till we get to the Rangers one. Anyway, let's talk about the Philadelphia Flyers this year. Brian, I'll get your opinion from the outsider of the Flyers, first of all. I know you've said it numerous times on the show that they're not going to make the playoffs, and to a point I can believe you. They're a very young team still. I think they're finally moving in the right direction, and with youth comes the growing curve. So what do you think with the Flyers team, the way they're headed, in the direction they're headed?
Well, I think it's hard to, speak against the direction that they're headed because they've gone very young and they've drafted very well.
Yes.
You can make the case that the Flyers prospect pool is probably, while it doesn't necessarily have the high-end guys that some systems have, I think from a quantity and depth perspective, it rivals any league. It might be the best. So from that standpoint, there's nothing wrong with what Hextall's been doing as long as you're patient. Mm-hmm. The problem is, this is Philadelphia, and people aren't patient.
Yep.
This isn't what he did in L.A., where they had a bunch of years nobody was paying attention. So I think that's where the fan base gets a little antsy.
Sure.
Hey, when's it going to do something here?
And we've talked about it, too, about the reason Hextall was so successful in L.A. is it took him 5 or 6 years to really get that ball moving, whereas to L.A. they don't give a rat's ass about hockey, whereas to Philly they do. So I'm glad they're not at least crucifying Hextall now. It's his 3rd year as a GM of the team. I really think he's got him headed in the right direction, but again, it takes time. Now, you talk about the lines for Flyers, briefly about the 4 lines that it looks like going into the season that are going to happen. You got Claude Giroux, Couturier, and Voracek. I'm not a big fan of Couturier. I think you should have got rid of him maybe a couple years ago, get some value for him. At this point, he has no value, so it's not a big deal. Claude Giroux, here's a guy who's supposed to be the named superstar, supposed to be every year the man, the captain, but hasn't performed as a captain yet.
Well, he's been rumored in trade talks for a while now.
With that no trade, it's tough, though.
Well, we've talked about this at length on the show, we do believe that the Flyers will be a contender at some point, but that point is not today.
Correct.
And the question becomes, well, what is Claude Giroux's value to this team when they're a contender?
Yes.
Is he still going to be a useful piece of that team? And if not, then why not harvest some of that value and speed this rebuild up?
Yeah, again, here's a guy, Claude Giroux. I was breaking down a team a couple years ago and really getting some of the veteran guys, some value of the guys, bring them in. I didn't want them to be like the Phillies and wait too long for a PR hit and get rid of guys when they're not, anything. But in talk about the second line, Jordan Wheel, Nolan Patrick, and Wayne Simmons, I think it's a good line. It's exceptionally well for Nolan Patrick being on a line with Wheel and Simmons. A little experience there. I think it's only a matter of time before Couturier comes back and Nolan Patrick, you get your 2nd overall pick up to the first line and get a little jump start. But, I guess you want some balance, too, with that.
Well, for them, I think their biggest problem is that I think they're very strong down the center to the point where they're going to put Giroux on the wing. But the problem for them is their wingers, and this has kind of been an organizational thing. I know Konechny, I think they're looking for a good year out of him, but I think losing Schenn in the offseason doesn't help them this year, but boys, it helped them in years forward because of what they got in that deal as far as the draft pick goes. I'll be curious to see, I think, how that plays itself out. I'm going to ask you this question. So you mentioned Claude Giroux was the star center on this team.
Yes.
He's projected to start the season on the wing. What's your snap judgment on that?
I think it's fine. I think they're just trying to jumpstart him. They're trying to get him going. And I think you can attest to this, too. I think Wayne Simmons is the star of this team now. In previous years, the last couple years with his goal scoring, his jumpstart ability to get the team going, if something happens, he gets in a fight, stirs it up a little bit. He's the guy that really energizes this team. Now, is that a good thing? I don't know. But in the same sense, I think Claude Giroux on the wing can't hurt them anymore. I think they're just trying to try something different, trying to move him around a little bit to get something started. If it works, great. If not, well, then they move him back to center eventually. But like you said, this team is center heavy. Your 3rd line, you're talking Dale Weiss, who me and you know was a bad signing.
Pretty damn terrible.
Little Terry Filippo you got in the middle, and then you got Travis Konechny on the wing, which is I think it's a decent line. And then you talk about the bottom line with Taylor Lear, Yari Leterra, I got it right. And Michael Raffle this year. Michael Raffle, he is what it is. I mean, the fourth line is the fourth line. I think you might get something out of Laterra. Are you going to get Schenn numbers? Probably not.
No, but Laterra was the price you had to pay to get a first-round pick back.
Correct. You had to swallow a little bit to get
yeah,
that. I understand that.
And that's fine. I mean, again, I don't think that this year is about this year for the Flyers, and I've maintained that for the past couple of years with this team. I mean, they have youth where it's needed, but the problem is, I'm looking at their roster here. Giroux's 29, Voracek's 28. Filppula's only there because of the trade they made just to get some cap relief for Tampa. They bought a fourth-round pick.
I'd be shocked if he's here more than 2-3 years.
He's here this year, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I will.
Yeah.
That's not even a question.
Yeah, they know. You know how they like extensions, though.
Well,
maybe they keep him around one more year, and he's here for a total 2 years. So
the thing about this team, I think it's a misnomer that this is a young team.
Oh,
and I say that because, again, I've mentioned all these guys that are in their late 20s, early 30s.
Yep.
I mean, from a forward perspective, other than Nolan Patrick and Konechny and Lawton, these guys aren't young guys.
No.
The youth is on defense, and they should be very happy about that youth. We're going to get to that in a second, but that's where the
core,
the strength of this team is there, really to the point where they probably could have afforded to trade one of these guys to help their forwards.
And I think that falls back too, and they know they had the strength in the defense because the goalie situation hasn't been right since the Hextall days. I mean, they haven't gotten right with the goaltender.
Turnstile.
Correct, and then we're going to get that in a second, but you talk about the defense, you talk about Ivan Provorov, you talk about Andrew McDonald, which again I think was a bad signing. I think after next year he's out of here.
Oh, that was a terrible.
That was terrible.
God,
I mean, it just seems
Holmgren.
it just seems like this team, when they extend people and they have a half decent year and they extend them, they just go in reverse. But anyway, then the second line, you got Shane Gostisbehere, who, last year was a little up and down. You signed the guy, and we talked about this on the show, the contract they gave him. Okay, you're taking a chance on a guy, getting a lower price for him now for a longer deal. Now, could you have done a 2-year deal with him? Absolutely could have. But then after those 2 years, if he did have 2 good years, you're going to pay the price of that money.
I don't mind that Gostisbehere contract at all. The only thing for me, and there was a rumor out there, and you never know with internet rumors, so we'll just talk about it for the hell of it, that they could have gotten Jonathan Drouin out of Tampa for Gostisbehere before he went to that trade in Montreal. And I look at the Flyers' defense, and I see guys like, again, you mentioned Provorov. You mentioned, Sam Morin is a young guy, probably making his start this year.
Yep.
Travis Sanheim's a young guy they're going to count on in the future.
Yep.
They have a lot of depth there.
Yep.
And I'm always thinking to myself, like we talked about their wingers and what kind of problems they're having there right now. Would it have made some sense for the Flyers to sell high, theoretically, possibly, on a guy like Gostisbehere, as good as he might be, to get a guy like Drouin in there because your forwards are lacking? And I go back to that and I say, that's the kind of thing from a Flyer perspective that I think makes a lot of sense, and I think they're going to regret not doing that.
Yeah.
Not because I'm down on Gostisbehere, but only because I don't know if he's hit his peak yet. And it's am I selling high on the guy for a Drouin who was a top 3 pick in his draft year, a lot of pedigree? I don't know.
Well, I think you just signed that big deal. It throws all that out the window.
This would have happened, I think, before that.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
The last line, you got Brandon Manning and Radko Gudas, which, honestly, I don't know why Radko Gudas is still here. But in the same sense, I guess it's a body to fill a defensive line. Folks, if you're happy about that, he is on the Philadelphia Flyers website, which I'm also atrocious about, too.
Great.
We didn't mention Robert Hagg, too. Here's a kid coming up. Yeah. Going to get a shot. Like you said, they're loaded on defense with youth. I mean, that's what I think the whole youth movement is, to protect the goal. And you look at the goalie situation, you got Brian Elliott, who came over from the Calgary Flames, who is going to be their starter, 2-year deal. That's fine with me. I know Brian's not big on it, but in the same sense with Brian Elliott, it gives you a little bit of stability in goal for the next 2 years. Is he the goalie of the future? Absolutely not.
But see,
and neither is Michal Neuvirth.
But those moves tell me where this team is mentally and what their organizational paradigm is, because you don't bring in a 32-year-old goaltender like Brian Elliott if you're trying to contend this year.
Well, but in the same sense, I think that they're focusing more on the offense and defense, not worrying too much on the goaltender, just as a stopgap for now, and trying to worry about that maybe next year for when Elliott leaves the following year. I think that could be the plan. Stabilizing the team on offense and defense, getting the positions in place they need to get in place, and then let's go after the goaltender.
Most important prospect in the whole system is Carter Hart, because he's their leading goaltending prospect.
And they got a lot of high hopes for him. Absolutely.
But the problem is, and this is where you and I go back and forth on this, as to when is this team going to take that next step. And I don't know that they're ever going to if they can't get that goaltending figured out. Mm-hmm. You look around the league at these goaltenders that kind of come out of nowhere. Again, Henrik Lundqvist was a 7th-round pick. The reality of it is, Carter Hart's the single most important. And I know they have some other goaltending process. I'm not discounting.
They got 3 or 4.
But Hart's I think,
Hart's
where their heart's set. Okay,
correct.
Pardon the pun.
Correct. Hart is the next dresser
guy.
to the zone, to the throne, exactly.
Stolarz is just a guy, but I still would have rather seen them play Stolarz than Brian Elliott. I just think you're getting nothing out of this.
Well, Stolarz is hurt anyway. I don't think he would open the season
start
anyway.
the year, but
I also don't think they're really high on Stolarz.
I agree with you entirely.
He can be a solid backup goaltender. It's fine. I don't think he'll ever. Now, is he going to be like a Bobrovsky that is going to sit on the bench for years and never going to play, then all of a sudden get his chance and break out? No, I don't think he's going to do that either. But I think Stolarz in the future can come up and be the backup for this team, and no questions asked, be solid in net. Now, is Brian Elliott going to be here? No, and I don't think Neuvirth's going to be here either. So that's still to be determined. But I think the Flyers, in the whole picture, are headed in the right direction. Now, for the end of the year, for the season coming up, will they make the playoffs? Brian, I know you're stuck on this. I'm the one to say that I know they're not going to be high in the playoffs. I do think they could sneak into an 8th spot. I think barely they could sneak into an 8th spot. Now, if they don't, I'm not crushed by it. Because, like I said, as long as they're heading in the right direction, I'm okay with that. As long as they're fighting till the end and not tanking at the end of the year, I'm okay with that.
88 points last season. I think that they're not going to reach that point this year, to be bluntly honest with you. I mean, I think the loss of Brayden Schenn, well, again, longer term, I'm not concerned about it for them. This year I am, because they don't have the forwards to make up for it. They're taking on crap contracts from other teams, like a Valtteri Filppula, like a Juri Lehtera. That is indication of where they think this team is.
They're trying to clean the slate so they can really go out and get some players. I mean, and like you said, they got some bad contracts. I mean, waived Matt Reed, a terrible player, 3.2 on the books. I mean,
but I have no problem with the Flyers doing that right now because they're not in contention.
Correct.
Get value for your cap visit. You're not going to use on something else and go that way.
Yep.
To me, I don't feel as though they're going to have to win the lottery to get a high pick in the draft next year. I think you're looking at a top 5 pick for this team next year. I think everybody around them, with the maybe in their division, with maybe the exception of the Devils, has really pulled away from them in that spot. And that's
they're different positions too as well.
I agree, and they're in top to bottom. I feel the best division in the NHL, which does not help them. It's a super competitive division, especially at the top end. I do not see a playoff year for the Flyers this year. I see quite the opposite.
And we had talked about this was the concern going into doing something like this with the Flyers. Is Philadelphia's looking for a winner now. They're looking for a winner in 6-7 years like the Kings were. They're looking for a winner now. So is Hextall going to have the time to keep this in motion? Or after next year, if this gets rock bottom, are they going to say, you know what, we got to move on again? And that's going to start the process all over again.
But I will say, again, I think the rebuild was helped a lot by winning the draft lottery and getting Nolan Patrick.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the way the draft went, I mean, really like a couple of guys that really were worth that.
You couldn't go wrong with the first or second pick in this draft. And there were rumors that they were going to move down, and I would have probably killed someone if they would have moved down.
But
there was no way.
But let's remember one thing: is the last couple of years of the NHL draft, you've seen generational talents. Mm-hmm. Both Nico Hischier and Nolan Patrick are not generational talents.
No.
But they're good players. I think they're going to be. Those are great additions.
2 to 3 years, they will make an impact in the league. Now, is it going to be like Edmonton?
Correct. It's not.
No,
this is not Connor McDavid.
It's not Connor McDavid.
Matthews.
Correct. It's not going to be that kind of impact, but they will make a difference on their teams. I'll say that. And the last question I'll ask you is: do you think Brian Elliott is an upgrade from Steve Mason?
I don't. I think it's 6 1/2 dozen of the other.
Slightly.
I'd rather play Neuvirth. I think Neuvirth is really talented. Just can't stay healthy.
That's exactly it. You can't rely on a goalie that keeps getting hurt.
But the question is, rely on him to do what? Because if you're not going to contend this year, do you really care? Because I could make the case.
Right.
I could make the case they should trade Giroux.
I can make the case for that.
I could make the case that they would get a lot to trade Wayne Simmons, but the fan base is not going to like
it. I agree. But see, at this point, you can't think about the fan base. You can't do the PR thing and say, oh, we got to keep running. No, you got to make moves that are going to be right for the team. If you're going to trade Wayne Simmons, you better get something in return for him that's going to make a difference.
So let me ask you this question, and humor me here. Wayne Simmons is getting $3.8 a year right now for a couple more seasons.
Correct.
Could you imagine the kind of haul you could get from a cap-strapped team like Chicago, right? If you say, hey, we'll trade you Wayne Simmons and we'll retain 50% of his contract. Which is not that much, again, because we're working off a 3.8.
If you would ever even attempt to do something like that, it has to be this year. Can't be any other year. After this year,
I can't agree with you more.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. This is that kind of outside-the-box thinking that really would get this team where it needs to go. They didn't trade Gostisbehere because the fan base fell in love with Gostisbehere.
Well,
they're not going to... And even I think Schenn was kind of hard for them to move.
He was a guy that they should have traded a while ago, too. But they just, like you said, couldn't get rid of him because of the whole brother thing and stuff like that. But... in the same sense, though, with Gostisbehere, I think you got some youth there. And I don't think you get rid of him, you bail on him this early. With the whole Wayne Simmons thing and Giroux, I'm okay for getting rid of them, but I know if you get rid of Giroux and Wayne Simmons, you pull the plug on the season. Then they don't make the playoffs. Then they go in total reverse.
But that's where you and I disagree. There is no plug on this season.
Well,
that's the thing.
From where they are, that's what I'm saying. From here, they go to here. That's
but all. That might be longer term, even more constructive.
Well, that's because, like you said, that's where it got to come into where they got to get something of value. If they get something of then they screw themselves.
I'm not saying this is Sixers trust the process here. What I'm saying is if you're not going to win, lose, and they're probably not going to win. So to keep these guys as they're getting up there in age and not pulling the value out to build your team going forward, I think is not a good idea. There were some rumors, Mike, of Montreal talking about Claude Giroux. And
I had heard that, yes.
And they were talking about Alex Galchenyuk. How great would Alex Galchenyuk be for a young Flyers team?
I just think though, if they sign him, you're not gonna really push forward. I mean, it's not him, but you wouldn't push forward this team because of the youth in a couple years anyway. So,
but they're doing a lot of this right now. They're
doing a lot of spinning, and they're hoping.
But that's, I mean, again, Brian Elliott it doesn't move the needle for me. It doesn't make it. I don't think as a Flyer fan you want to watch more games.
No,
Brian Elliott
I think he was the best out there. Excuse me. At the time as well.
Monsters.
You couldn't get Mike Smith. You couldn't get other guys that had signed other places. And Brian, like they did with Brizgalov. They took a chance. But they took a chance on, not to defend him on that, but they took a chance on a guy who was the best goalie out there, threw a ton of money at him, and it backfired in their face. Here they just put a goalie in there for a couple of years for a stay fast, I think, for a little while, until they can get everything else rolling. But we will see. He says no playoffs, I say do playoffs.
A friendly reminder, the division that they're in
is not easy.
4 of the top 6 teams in wins last year were Metropolitan Division.
It's going to be tough. Without a doubt, it's not going to be tough.
So. It's absolutely brutal.
Didn't Columbus win 10 games in a row last year or not? Maybe
like 16.
Yeah.
No. The Flyers won 10 games in a row.
Oh, that's right.
Didn't make the playoffs.
That's right.
And you'll remember I said, hey, they're probably going to go 2-14 in February. That's what happens.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You never know. I think we also said that the Vegas team was going to make the playoffs. Yeah.
I said they could make the playoffs, but they didn't draft. If they drafted the team that I wanted them to draft, they would have made the playoffs.
You should be out there and beat you. Yeah, why aren't you out in Vegas? Right?
They didn't ask me. They got my email.
And another episode goes by. So anyway, that's all the time we have for the Flyers preview. Thank you for watching. It's always an experience here. It's going to be a great season in AHL going back and forth Flyers Rangers. And remember, you can always get good content here if you need to.
Absolutely. We're everywhere on social media. Make sure you're following us on both Twitter and Facebook at Sportsbox Show. We do a lot of live content on our Facebook feed, so make sure you're checking us out there. And of course, please subscribe to our YouTube channel right here. Keep on this party we're on.
God, you might have to keep watching. There might be an MMA fight here one day with me and him talking about the Rangers Flyers. It's unbelievable. Anyway, remember, at the Sports Box, the only opinion that matters. You want to tell them?
It's right here because the Flyers aren't making the playoffs.
It just never ends. See you.
This episode of the Sports Box is brought to you by Mic'd Up Entertainment and DJ Mike Velardi. For all of your event planning needs, make sure you contact Mike at 609-864-5925 and tell him that you saw him on the Sports Box.
1, 2, 3.
Don't forget to subscribe.